Well, a lot of times we start these shows with, kind of getting to know the background of the herbalist. So I often ask, what were you like as a kiddo? But we're going to kind of do a little different version of that this time around. We have a HerbRally Schoolhouse member, Diana. She said she heard you talk at one time about speaking or talking to the stones. So with that prompt, I'm just kind of hoping you can kind of go into that story.
Yeah, I met the Rolling Stones when no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Mick
Different
and
kind of
I,
stone.
no, we
Yeah.
never met him. So basically, when I was very young, I suppose if I had been born later, I would have been diagnosed with all sorts of interesting things. I'm dyslexic, although they didn't know about dyslexia when I was a kid. I would have been diagnosed, I'm sure, as having ADHD and possibly some other things as well. But they didn't have those diagnoses when I was a child. They just put me in sort of the learning disabled kind of classes. And I was not your typical child. I was painfully shy. I was very small, incredibly shy. I kind of could feel other people's pain. So it was kind of uncomfortable to be around other people, especially if they were in pain or whatever. And so a lot of my childhood, I spent wandering around the woods. And I developed a relationship both with rocks and plants. And I can remember being, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. We lived in a semi-detached home, so we only had like half of a yard. But I can remember making stone circles around the house. I would have stones in my pockets, stones in my bed, stones in my room. I keep stones in my mouth. I just kept them with me all the time. And they were my friends. You people have imaginary friends. I had geological friends. And you can see behind me, you can see there's stones and
Oh,
crystals,
wow.
fossils. And so I just found them fascinating. I also remember one experience when I was maybe 4 or 5. I was out in the back in our yard and I was picking these plants, just this one kind of plant. And I was putting them into a plastic vat bin and mashing them up with a rock and then put some water in and kept mashing them up. And my mother came outside and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making medicine. This is good if you get a cut or a scratch." My mother just shook her head and wandered away. I think she said something like, "Well, don't eat it." Well, I actually know what that plant is now. And it was plantain.
Wow.
And the plant told me I could do it. And so I, since I didn't really play much with other children, I found my friends for the most part with plants and stones, and they talk to me. And, people say, "Well, that's bizarre. That's weird." But it's not, because some of the most amazing things I have ever learned about plants, I've learned directly from the plants. So, for instance, this is kind of a funny story. My uncle one time said to me, and he was a sort of a folk healer. He said to me, "If you ever don't know what plant to use, what you do is you wander around the fields and the woods and you think about the person who needs help. And the plant will let you know it can help them by shaking." Now, I was the herbalist. He was the sort of more of a traditional healer. And so I mean, he knew some plants, but I never really did it because most of the time I at least thought I had an idea of what somebody needed, even if I didn't really. At least I thought I did. And so one day I'm in Churchville, Virginia, teaching for some friends, and wake up in the morning. I'm sleeping on the sofa, and I wake up. I'm wearing my t-shirt and my shorts, and I go outside to use the outhouse because I really need to use it. And there's a sign on it saying "out of order." And I'm like, darn. And I'm looking around, I'm bare feet, and everywhere I look in the woods where I was going to wander off, it's all poison ivy. Now, there are worse places to get poison ivy than between your toes and in the bottoms of your feet, but not many. And I'm sensitive to poison ivy. So I'm thinking, I'm going to do that. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this bush shaking. And so I kind of look over there, and then I finally wander over, and I'm expecting a bird to fly out, a squirrel, a rabbit, something, and nothing runs away. And I'm looking around, there's no wind. And all of a sudden I look down, it's the only place there's no poison ivy. So I wandered in there, took care of what I needed to do. And from that moment on, I have believed without a doubt, if you have a need, the plants will respond. So fast forward about 10 years, and I had this patient who had glomerular nephritis. It's a chronic degenerative kidney disease. And she had come to me, and I had put her on this formula, Lu Di Huang Wan, which is the Romania 6 formula. And it'll help people with degenerative kidney diseases. It'll kind of keep them from getting worse. And it will last about a year and a half, if you're really lucky, 2 years, but then it stops working. And this patient had had what's called an EGFR, an estimated glomerular filtration rate. And when she came to me, she was at about 18, and we had kept her there for about a year and maybe 3 or 4 months. And all of a sudden, she'd come back from her nephrologist, and her EGFR was now down to 16. And I was like, okay, it's not working anymore. And I was really upset because she was a wonderful person. And, if you're a clinician, you become a clinician not because you want to make a lot of money, because you want to help people. And I had nothing. That was it. That was the only thing I had. And if I could have referred her to somebody who I thought, would have something to offer that I didn't, I would have been happy. But I didn't know where to send her. I didn't know what to do. And I'm sitting out. This is a late August day when I used to live in northwestern New Jersey. It's probably about 92 degrees, 122% humidity. The air is still, not a breeze. I mean, it is hot. And I'm sitting in the shade of my barn. And I'm thinking about this woman. And all of a sudden, I look up and I see the nettle plants shaking. So what do I think? I think, well, is there a bird in there? Is there a squirrel? Is there a rabbit, a chipmunk? I'm slow. So it takes me a moment. And I get up and I walk over looking again, thinking something's going to fly away, run away, and there's nothing there. And again, I'm looking around. There is no wind. Nothing's moving, but these plants are shaking. And all of a sudden in my head, in my mind's ear, so to speak, I hear, I can help her. And I'm looking at this plant, and here we have nettles, late August, the leaves are, bug eaten. They're starting to turn, doesn't look healthy at all. And in my mind, I'm thinking, nettles leaf is an amazing plant. Don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful medicine. It's great for people with minor kidney issues, hematuria, blood in the urine. And I'm thinking, well, nettle leaf's not going to help her. And then I hear, not my leaves, my seeds, and they kind of rustle. And it's just full of seed. And my mouth just dropped, and I'm sitting there going like, I'd never heard of using nettle seed for anything. The only thing I had ever read is that I knew in Europe they used nettle seed as an emergency food during famines. They grind it up and flour out. So I knew it wasn't toxic. So I had nothing to lose. I went back to the house. I got some tobacco, used as a ceremonial offering, offered it to the plants, prayed with them, asked for permission to gather some of the nettle seed. I harvested a bunch. I made a tincture out of it, waited a couple of weeks, pressed it out. And I called up my patient. And I said, listen, I've got this thing. It's experimental. I said, if you're interested, I'll give it to you. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be harmful in any way. And if you want to try it, you can. And she said, listen, you've helped me as much as anybody's helped me. I trust you. I'll try it. She starts taking it, kind of played around a little bit with dose because I didn't really know how to dose it at that point. And in like 6-7 weeks, her EGFR is back up to 18. That can happen. You can have some fluctuation. I'm not putting too much into it at this point. In 3 months, her EGFR is up to 20. And now this is getting a little interesting because that usually doesn't happen. After a year, her EGFR is up to 28. That never happens. In fact, she tells me that her nephrologist says to her, what are you doing? And she says, well, I'm taking these herbs. And he goes, no. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Just keep doing it. Which to me is a bizarre response. I don't get that at all. But nevertheless,
that's it.
The nettle seed kept her between 26 and 28% EGFR for over a dozen years. And when she passed away, it wasn't from kidney failure. And the plant told me this, and I've learned many other amazing things from plants. If we can get, I mean, I've had great human teachers. I have this great library. I've learned from books. I've learned a lot from my patients. But if we are open to it, and I'm not talking about imagination, I am not talking about quote unquote what we'll call intuition. I'm talking about plants have a consciousness. It's different than ours, but it is real. And I would actually say that throughout human history, many things that people have, quote unquote, discovered about plants came in dreams, came from talking to the plants. And if you are open to it, I think that this isn't something unique to me. This isn't something like I'm special. I'm not. It's just, I think, something that we in the dominant culture have forgotten.
A few follow-up questions. One is just kind of a really simple, quick answer question. But so first of all, I'm just kind of curious. I don't know if I missed it or not. What was the medicine of the nettle seed she was taking? Was it a tincture?
It was a tincture.
It was a tincture. Gotcha. Okay. I guess the other couple follow-up questions was, is there a name that you've given this phenomenon of seeing the plants shake at you? And the other question to that is, have you ever, you've been a practicing herbalist for a few decades now. I think you've been studying herbalism for 55 years. So you have a lot of herbalist friends. Have you heard any of your other herbal buddies talk about experiencing the same phenomenon?
Well, first off, what do I call this phenomenon? When the plants shake, saying hello.
I like it. Simple as that.
And as for, I mean, I've been teaching about herbal medicine. As you mentioned, I've been in practice for 47 years. I've been teaching about herbal medicine longer than that. I think I led my first herb walk when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people, our herbal buddies, who have studied with me or who have taken classes, at a conference and have taken my class. I have a class called Talking Leaves, the Language of Plants. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, lots of other people have done it. I would say the majority of my friends probably don't do this on a regular basis, but there are some people who I think use it quite a bit. And different people learn in different ways. And, some people, it might seem a little bit too out there to do it this way. But again, I don't think that this is not what I would consider paranormal. It's not, ESP. It's not something that is a unique gift. I just believe that human beings innately were always able to talk and communicate on some level beyond our own species, except that the sort of linear critical mindset, certainly within the culture that we all grew up in, says that that is impossible. But if I asked you or our listeners, how many of you have thought, all of a sudden you start thinking about somebody you haven't seen in 20 years and the next day they call you?
Yeah.
You're telling me that's a coincidence? I just can't believe that the chances of that occurring are probably right up there with winning the lottery. And many of us have had my uncle, who lived in North Carolina, when he'd want me to contact him. This is before the current era of cell phones. He used to call long distance, used to cost money. He'd show up in my dream and say, call me. And I'd call him back and he'd say, it's about time. I've been telling you to call me for 2 weeks. As I said, I'm slow. It takes me a while, but these things are real. Thomas Edison, the great inventor, the stuff that he didn't rip off from other people by stealing patents, he dreamed a lot of it. The Remington repeating rifle was dreamed. Rosalind, I forget her last name and I apologize. Basically, the woman who discovered DNA, the structure of DNA, Watson and Crick got the Nobel Prize, but Rosalind, I'm sorry, I can't remember her last name. She deserves to have her last name remembered. She dreamed it, supposedly. There's many great things that people have dreamed or learned through some non-conscious process that, again, in the dominant culture, we would say that it's simply impossible.
So Elizabeth is telling us in the chat that it's Rosalind Franklin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Rosalind Franklin. Yes.